Alright folks, day 7. 31 days of horror, 31 days of Halloween, whatever. I don't really know like if actually this posted on day 7 or not, but you know what, I'm just trying the best I can. And for day 7, we've really got one of the most important exploitation films ever. Herschel Gordon Lewis's Blood Feast. Now, it's not the first degenerate cinema movie, it's not the first slasher film, it's not even the first splatter film, but really, it's the movie that sort of popularized it as an American genre. It's certainly the great forerunner to all the trauma movies. It's a great forerunner to, all of the really, violent splatter flicks from the 1980s. Before you had Bad Taste, before you had Evil Dead, before you had Basket Case, you had Blood Feast. And Blood Feast is one of those movies where it's so entertaining. I mean, structurally, it's a really bad film. I mean, the acting is atrocious. The plot is just microscopic. But it's just so fun. I mean, it's like barely an hour long, but it's just such an enjoyable movie. And the plot line for it is really simple. It's basically your early psychosexual slasher film. I mean, before we got into the Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees idea of the slasher, where they're just like a nameless, faceless creature, which represents like the Freudian id or whatever social menace you want to apply them to. Back in the day, I mean, when we did slasher films, they were actually character centric. Psycho had Norman Bates. Peeping Tom, that was very much a pseudo-psychological expose. And from that you had a flick like, even some later 1980s stuff like Silent Night, Deadly Night. They weren't necessarily whodunits. They were actually films that tried to kind of get inside the mind of, the psycho killer and show you, what makes them tick and go through their lives. And we've all seen movies like that a million times. Everything from, Christmas Eve all the way up to Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. So basically, what Blood Feast does is it's kind of like that, except it does not try to be intellectual whatsoever. It's a complete cornball, cheeseball, just goofball fest, and I love it. To begin with, the killer in the movie is a guy named Fuad Ramses, and he's like this psychopathic Egyptian worshiper of Isis, not the terrorist activity. I mean the old Egyptian goddess of fertility. And my favorite thing about the movie is he's a psycho killer, like occult murderer by night, but during the day he's a caterer. So I mean, there's not that many great serial killer / caterer movies out there, and Blood Feast is certainly one of the magnum opus of that subgenre. But anyway, this dude just chews the scenery. You can see the bite marks in the background. He's this dude who looks like Stewart from Mad TV, and he has like the goofiest fake eyeballs, and he has this delivery that is just, oh my god, I can't even begin to describe it. It's just so over the top and awful and hilarious. Just go to Blood Feast and type in Blood Feast into YouTube and watch the entire movie. You need to go see this one. It's worth it. But anyway, he's basically the evil caterer guy, and he's trying to kill people. And basically his plan is to go out and kill a bunch of nubile women and cut them up and take their eyeballs out and cut off their tongues and hack off their legs and basically serve them in a gigantic Egyptian feast. That's what you need to look up. Look that up on YouTube. Type in Blood Feast Egyptian Feast and you'll see the video, and it's so great that you'll watch it like 8 times in a row. But anyway, he's doing that to appease the god, and of course you got the dumb cops on the trail who are slowly but surely kind of piecing together that, wait a minute, maybe this one guy who's the caterer in town who also teaches the Egyptian mythology courses down at the community college, it's always talking about eating people and abducting people and ripping their eyeballs out, maybe we might want to go question him. So I mean, it's one of those movies where you really have to suspend your disbelief, but it's also so tongue-in-cheek. It's just such an incredibly goofy, satire, self-deprecating movie, and it's just an absolute blast. It's one of those movies that's so dumb, but at the same time just so enjoyable. There's no way you can watch this and not have a smile on your face. But I mean, it's just overall, it's such a great bad movie. You know, it's one of the best bad movies ever made. And there's so many great things. I mean, the gore effects were really, really ahead of their time. This was kind of the prototype splatter film, so, I mean, you had eyeballs coming out, tongues getting severed, amputations. These are the kind of things really, I mean, they're rank and file now, but way back in 1963, I mean, this stuff was unheard of. And really, the best thing about this entire movie, it's the Technicolor. I mean, the visuals in this movie, the hues, the saturation, just the vivacity of the hues and tones. You don't get that anymore. I mean, for whatever reason, you can't get that type of color in films anymore. With all of our high-tech HD stuff, also we can do on Final Cut Pro, we can't get those kind of really sharp pastel colors that we're getting in Blood Feast. So everything is just super bright red and Technicolor, and there's lime greens everywhere, and it's just awesome looking. It's the kind of thing that you literally can't do anymore. And I'm not saying it's as good visually as something like Suspiria, but for what it's worth, it's really, really entertaining. So there we go. That's Blood Feast, one of the all-time great masterpieces of crap in the history of the horror genre. And if you haven't seen it, it's well worth going out of your way to see. Like I said, it's only about an hour long, so even if you don't like it, I mean, you're only wasting, you know, like 60 minutes. And it's great. You know, it's one of the big step-ups for the American independent film movement. Certainly a big step up for the degenerate cinema movement in America. And overall, it's just a really, really, really absurdly, stupidly fun movie. And if you haven't seen it, you probably should. So anyway, really, really high marks on this one. I'll give it 3.5 pieces of candy corn out of 4. So, you know, it's a really, really good one. So that's it. That's Herschel Gordon Lewis. That's Blood Feast. The guy gave us 2000 Maniacs and the Gore Girls and the Wizard of Gore. Do you see a recurring pattern there with his oeuvre? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. And this is probably his standout work that he's most famous for. If you haven't seen it, go see it. It's terrific. And we keep chugging along, and I'll see you for day 8 shortly.